The following podcast is an enticing media production.
Where the Nell have you been? Join us for conversation about life, business, and everything in between. Welcome to What the Nell, where we've got stories to tell. Here's your host, Nell Tice.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another brand new episode of the What the Nell podcast with yours truly, Nell Tice. I know I got like the head bop going on here. I have an awesome guest with me today. I'm super excited to talk to. He is the esteemed completer of Tony Hawk Pro versions 1 and 2. He also graduated high school in just 4 years. I don't know how anyone does that. He goes by the name Chris Newcomer. Chris, welcome to the What the Nell podcast.
Thank you. It took me a lot longer to get through those Tony Hawk games than it probably should have.
I thought you were going to go with high school there, but you know, Tony Hawk is complicated.
just shy of just under 4 years.
That's amazing. I love it. So, Chris, you are the owner of Big Planet Apparel. Am I correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Correct, yes.
Okay, amazing. So I bet you didn't think I was going to read that bio out loud, did you?
I really thought you were going to see that and be like, oh, he's an idiot. Why would he put that stuff in the bio?
You know, the whole point, and like at the end of the episodes, I always ask the guest, you know, what is your What the Nell story for us? I think there's so many times, especially in entrepreneurship, that we take ourselves way too seriously.
I did a podcast a couple of years ago, and my Facebook page at the time said I went to Harvard and I went to Yale Law School, and the first thing he brings up is, how did you go to Harvard and to Yale? And I'm like, I didn't. I'm lying. That's what happened there.
Why didn't you just go with I transferred?
I drove past Yale one time. I mean, in Connecticut, if that counts.
I think if you're from the Northeast, you have to.
I feel a whole lot smarter. Okay, cool. Let me go deliver this.
You're just like
now.
You're like a sponge in the car. You drove by, you absorbed all of the IQ that was radiating. So, all right, tell us about your journey. Like, how did you get to Big Planet Apparel? Tell us all about it.
So, really, it starts in 8th grade. These two 10th graders came down to the middle school to tell us about high school classes. And they were like, hey, graphics class has this really old teacher. He doesn't care what you do. And, you do computer art all day long.
Mm.
And I was like, that sounds awesome. And so I signed up for that class. And that was graphics level 1. I went to Hempfield High School for all the local people.
Yeah.
Shout out to Bill Turner. So I got there, and it was a young teacher. It was like his second teaching job, and he was like, we're going to do homework, we're going to do reports. And he changed up the class to be a little bit more modernized from the young guy, but it was still a really cool class. And I took all 3 years of graphics class that Hempfield offered. And then my senior year, I went to CTC for desktop publishing.
Mm.
That was more of the computer graphics side of things, whereas in graphics class, we physically did screen printing and offset printing, which, offset printing is unfortunately a dead art form. Screen printing is a thing that I really took hold of. And then after high school, I had no idea what I wanted to do. I did a little floaty dance. I did construction for a little while. Broke 2 fingers.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, a piece of scaffolding fell on my hand, and I crushed 2 fingers, and I was like, well, I'm not sure this is for me. I moved out to Colorado for a little while.
Oh.
Ran out of money, and then came back.
Mm-hmm.
And when I came back, a friend of the family was like, well, I know this screen printing place that's always looking for people. And I was like, cool, I know how to do that. Which, doing it in high school for a couple years and doing it in a commercial setting is 2 totally different things.
Yeah.
So I lied my way through that interview. I'm like, yeah, I know how to screen print. I could do it right now. And which was maybe like a half truth. And then I got the job right away. I was interviewed for like 15 minutes, and then he was like, all right, well, go ahead and here's a job. So,
Oh,
like,
wow.
can you start today? I'm like, yeah, sure. Which I think I actually did have something else going on, but I was like, all right, whatever. So I worked at that place for 2 years, and the whole time I was like, man, I could do this on my own. Like, I don't know why I'm working here. Started, you know, the thought that all employees have, where they're just like, man, I could just do this on my own.
Yeah. Hmm.
Worked at another place that didn't really work out. Did another floaty dance till I was about 27, and then a friend of mine, like I'd always talk about, like I think I'm going to start the screen printing business. I think I'm going to start the screen printing business. And a friend of mine just said to me one time, "Hey, what I heard was, hey, you keep talking about starting this business. When are you going to start it?" And
Hmm.
what she said was, "Hey, you talk about starting this business. When are you gonna do that?" And that hit me. And then I think it was like the next day, like I started collecting equipment on Craigslist. Like I would just pay cash for stuff. I knew all the stuff that I needed to buy. So that was in 2008. So I started collecting stuff. All of I just pay cash for it and go weird places, middle of Pennsylvania, middle of nowhere. Like,
Hmm.
just buy all the stuff that I needed. I assembled everything, and then I started in a friend of mine's basement. He was pretty cool about. He was like, "Well, there's nothing going on in my basement. You can go down there if you want to." I'm just like, "Yeah, no, that sounds awesome."
It's a
So
space.
I know it's kind of. I didn't even start in my own basement. I started in a friend of mine's basement, and we modified the electric in his house. Like we added a whole different panel.
Oh my gosh.
It was any other friend, it would have been like, I'm not going to let you do any of that stuff at my house. But Andy was really cool about everything, and so I was there for about a year and just tried to get as many jobs as possible and failed a lot and didn't really make any money. I would have made way more money at a part-time job for like 10
Right.
bucks an hour. So I just did that part-time. I had a full-time job. I was the manager of a self-storage facility at that time, which is riveting work.
Listen, I had a guy on this podcast who ran self-storage facilities. His story was really interesting.
Okay, so the day-to-day of a self-storage facility manager is you're watching a lot of YouTube videos and sweeping
I'm
out money.
sure.
The overall, storage industry is an interesting industry because you can evict people much. I mean, inside of 2 months, you can like auction off their stuff. So,
Mm,
like, I assume that like owning one and managing one is a whole lot different than the day to day like helping customers move in kind of stuff where you're just bored like I mean, a busy day is 3 customers,
right.
and you're just like just staring at the ceiling like this is terrible. But
Yeah.
what it did afford me is a lot of time to collect equipment,
Sure.
contact customers, try and get the name out there. So
Silver lining for sure.
exactly. So I did that for a while, and then I went back to Apple Incorporated. I'd worked there previously, and
Huh.
so I was just selling computers to like business customers. And the whole time I was doing that, I was passing out my business card for screen printing, which would have
Hmm.
gotten me in a lot of. I would have gotten fired if they'd have found that out and play around. But the whole time I was like networking and finding customers and that kind of stuff. So
No, I mean, that's such a good idea and so resourceful. I mean, you were in a space and you
exactly,
used that opportunity to your advantage. So go on. I'm really intrigued by that.
100%. So eventually, what happened was eventually the shop had moved a couple times and it moved into the basement of my house, and that's where it was for about 4 or 5 years. And then we moved there. about 3 blocks away from my old house, there was shop space available. I had a customer that was in the complex that we're in. And he was like, "You should talk to the landlord to see if they have any space." I said, "That's a good idea." So we ended up with like a 2-car garage type setup, which was perfect for the size that we were.
Mm-hmm.
It was a couple $100 a month. It was fantastic. And we just ran out of there. And the only thing we did at the time, we just did screen printing. So it was a great setup. And then so I moved it out of my house, which is actually a relief to have your job, and your business separated from your home life is actually kind of nice, especially when you've had because I would just go, walk downstairs and be like, well, I'm here and I'm going to print these 100 shirts and
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know if it's nice. You tell that to my sweatpants and see what they say. Business on top, party on the bottom.
So at the top, so I had a full-time job and I was doing this stuff all at the exact same time. So I was working probably 80 to 100 hours a week because I printed all the shirts.
Mm-hmm.
I did everything. I did that, and then eventually I went part-time at Apple because I couldn't handle doing both. So we started getting busier with screen printing. Still in the same small 2-car garage shop. I started developing carpal tunnel and went to go see my doctor, and she gave me like really good advice. She was like, "Well, I could tell you to stop, but I know you're not going to. So why don't you just hire an employee?"
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, "That's like the best medical advice I've ever gotten in my entire life." I mean, she hit the nail on the head. I'm like, "Yeah, that's actually a good idea." So I brought on my first part-time employee, which worked out great. He's still with me today. He's running
that's amazing.
literally right now. I can hear him working. So that was fantastic. And then from that small 2-car garage kind of place, we moved into a bigger, we're in like 2,500, 3,000 square feet now.
Oh my gosh.
So there was a karate studio in the bigger part of the building, and they just left town one day. I've never gotten the full story out of the landlord, and he seems
they pulled a Baltimore Colts.
he seems bitter about it still, so I don't bring it up. But I'm like, oh man, all right. So he we subdivided part of the room that they were in, and we took the larger half at the time, and we've been in that facility ever since. So from there we grew. So we still have a manual press, which is the kind of press that everybody started with in high school. I mean, it's a lot newer one, more industrialized,
Mm-hmm.
but we now have a full automated press, which can do 900 shirts an hour. Now having said that, that's like saying like a sports car goes 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. Like, yes, under optimum conditions, it can do that many shirts, but
right.
really, it's a couple hundred an hour.
Right.
How many colors and all that kind of good stuff. And then
Sure.
we also brought embroidery in-house as well, so we do all of that in our facility too. We also, in the last 2 years, direct-to-film has become more of a popular thing, which is, if you remember the Wildwood Boardwalk, you pick out a design and I want that on a t-shirt and just they stamp it right there. So we have a version of that we can do as well.
That's cool.
Smaller run stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But that is the problem with that is it's more expensive and it's
so what's your favorite part of the business? Like what is what's your favorite part?
So my favorite part is still printing, and it'll always be because I started screen printing, in high school. I love to go out and do a job every now and then, but the rest of the staff is like, why don't you just not? The last job I printed, I got reprimanded a little bit. They're like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, well, I'm gonna print these." And they're like, "No, you're not."
Listen, I've always heard there's a particular saying that someone taught me a long time ago. If I hire you and I can do your job better than you can, then why did I even hire you?
Man, listen, and it's so true. I'm so out of practice now. Like I used to be really fast and really good, but now I am by far the slowest one. And like, it's not even close. Like, it takes me forever to do stuff that used to take me like 10 minutes. And
Mm-hmm.
now I'm like, well, all right, I'll just let you guys handle it.
Yeah. So what's your bread and butter? Like, what's your ideal client for your
Yeah,
business?
so ideal clients are any kind of business or organization that has like over 100 people in
Mm-hmm.
it. So like, we've done a lot of stuff for Fortune 500 companies. So we've
Nice.
done stuff for Eurofins and Comcast,
Amazing.
which are pretty big, companies, pretty big contracts.
Sure.
I think we did like 20,000 shirts in a week for Comcast one year.
Wow.
And like real Comcast, not like local affiliate. Like, I mean, I drove them to Philadelphia, Comcast.
Wow. Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, can I get some Phillies tickets? And they kind of laughed at that.
I mean, it's a valid question. I
I
feel
mean, it
like
didn't
they're
hurt to
airing
ask,
the
right? I
Phillies
mean,
games.
these are shirts, and how about those box seats?
If you don't ask, you never know.
I mean, I've wanted to sit on that couch for a long time out in, center field. So, yeah, I mean, obviously that's the high end of,
Right.
what gets done. But we do everything from 25 pieces the whole way to, a couple thousand. The ideal
That's
client
amazing.
is one that wants to obviously keep coming back with a lot of the same stuff. So we do a lot of stuff for like construction companies. Trade people are the ones that kind of do a lot of the same apparel over and over again.
Okay.
And
Okay.
now that we've started doing embroidery in house, we can do stuff for like offices the same way.
Yeah.
So that's how, some of that kind of nicer office apparel where people, want like a nice left chest embroidery on a button
Hmm.
down shirt, something like that. So
Oh, that's cool.
those customers are great too because they come back over and over again as well.
Hmm.
It's kind of an evergreen. As long as the customer's happy, they'll keep coming back to you, and you have a decent price. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So that's, I mean, but to answer your question fully, I mean, the ideal customer can kind of be a little bit all over the place because we do stuff for, we have one soccer team that just comes to us for T-shirts every year,
Hmm.
once a year, and they're fantastic. I mean,
Yeah.
it's been the same design for the last 5 or 6 years.
Yeah.
It's one of the moms that's like, hey, you do a good job, so we'll just keep coming back. So that's a fantastic customer too, and I mean, they're not like, it's not like I'm going to pay my mortgage with their order. But on the other hand, like, it's nice to have people that want to come back year after year.
Yeah, I mean, repeat business, like there's
The best.
so many benefits and it's not said often enough about how important that repeat business is, regardless of whether or not you can pay your mortgage with it. But
And pay all your bills.
exactly, if you get more of that one type of repeat customer, then you're golden.
Exactly. Yeah, and I mean, we like to work with people. I mean, this is going to sound so stupid, but we like to work with people that we like. So
That's not stupid at all. That's actually like a value. Like if you don't like who
sure.
you're working with, you should probably
I
reprioritize.
mean, there's some customers we've had to say goodbye to, and they were as far as money wise, they were like really good customers, but
Yeah.
I mean, if you're gonna, be a little bit of a pain in the rear all the time, like, maybe you can go be somebody else's pain in the rear.
Yeah, that's a tough decision to make
It really
too.
is.
And
It really is.
it's also a testament to how successful you've become in your business because not every business can do that. And
I mean,
especially when you're first starting out, I mean, you're taking in all of the business that you can get
anything that
because you
walks through the
just
door,
yes.
I would say probably the first 12 years. So we've been in business for 15 years now. This is year 15.
Wow. Congrats.
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's a big milestone. I always
Yeah.
forget about big milestones. Like, in my head, I'm just like, yeah, whatever. It's 15 years.
I
But
know. I feel like that's
it's
such
so
a trait that we
important.
all share.
Like, yeah, in my head, I'm just like, yeah, 15 years. It's going to be another 15 years. Whatever. So many businesses are just like here and gone before you even know it.
You know.
So, I mean, we have a lot of, the first, I don't know, 10, 12 years, it was literally anything that walked through the door, I would say yes to.
Hmm.
And, you learn over time that it, you have to start saying no to some stuff. Like, you
Hmm.
have to start saying no to stuff that's not, to use the cliche from the Good to Great books, you have to say no to stuff that's not your primary flywheel. And you don't, I mean, and it hurts sometimes too, because sometimes those customers become your friends that, they they would get like 12 shirts every year, but you have to start saying no to that stuff because you have to prioritize the stuff that is bringing in more revenue so that you can keep growing. Like,
Sure.
and some customers just aren't able to grow with you, and that's okay. They just have to find another solution, and sometimes you're just not it.
So true.
And I mean, it does, like, on a human level, you're like, this person's kind of my friend now, but on a business level, you're like, I really don't have time. And I still make too many exceptions. If you email us and you talk to my staff, they don't make the exceptions. They're like, no,
Right.
we got a rule, we stick to the rule, and that's the way it is. But if
Sure.
you talk to me, I'm a giant softy, and I'm like, yeah, we'll do anything. Yeah, whatever you want. And I'm just like, I have to stop
I
saying
feel like you're
yes stuff.
probably not alone in that. There are so many business owners because you still have that mindset that that you started the business with. It's your lifeblood, and you want to make people happy, and this is just kind of the way it is. So
All of
don't be so hard on yourself.
all of that is accurate, and as much as I want to like tout myself as like I'm a cold-hearted business person, like I'm not that person. Like,
So okay, here's a question. What is one thing that has happened along the way to where you are now that you did not expect?
wow,
Whether that be a pleasant, unexpected thing or unpleasant.
there's been so many things. I was not. Probably the big one was my divorce. That one was not expected.
Well, I mean, honestly, that's unfortunately not that uncommon.
Yeah, and I'm sure being an entrepreneur didn't help that situation, because
Right.
it's
That's
always
and
up and
especially
down,
among
and
them because it's a life change.
it sure is. So that would be one of the things. But I think one of the big things in my business that all turned around, that like completely changed trajectory and all that kind of stuff, was we went fully automated about 3 years ago. So we were
Hmm.
doing everything by hand, which you can survive, but you can't be near as fast.
Yeah.
And when we went fully automated, I mean, it was a big investment. Like, we're talking,
Sure.
as much as a house at the time.
Yeah. And when you say fully automated, how do you mean? You mean in the production
Yeah,
process
in
or
the
do you
production
mean
part of it, yeah.
okay.
So everybody starts with a manual press that you push by hand, and that's
Mhm.
kind of where everybody gets started. At a certain point, you are bringing in too much work for that to be efficient at
Mhm.
all. So I want to say this was during COVID, 3.5 years ago. I I went to a trade show. I was like, this is we bought it pre-COVID, and then COVID happened, which was
Mhm.
just fantastic.
Yeah.
Buy a huge
Great
big piece
timing.
of machinery that's, a couple $1,000s a month, and then the whole world shuts down. You're like, oh, great.
Yeah.
So that we bought the press. It sat on our loading dock for a little while. I bought it before COVID happened, and then it sat on the loading dock for a while because we couldn't, because the guy that set it up, because the whole world shut down, he couldn't get
Mhm.
out to set it up. So that was a whole big thing in and of itself. We
Yeah.
actually came out of COVID really, really well. Like, we actually ended up, for the year of 2020, we actually ended up with a little bit of growth. Not like a lot, but I was happy with anything, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean that's great considering what
Yeah, I mean,
could be, especially that what businesses
I just
experienced.
remember, like, I so I've got a really cool business mentor who has been there for me thick and thin to answer any kind of questions I have.
Mhm.
And I called him up and I said, "Hey, Scott, like, what is this? What are we doing?" And he's like, "Well, it's going to be 2 weeks. I think it's going to be all right." And I don't even think I know, in fact, I know he didn't know it was really going on either.
Yeah.
because he's got a
I don't
very
think anybody did.
well, right, exactly. He's got a very successful business that he's way more successful than I am, and he was like, just do whatever they tell you, and we'll get back on our feet. And that was a whole wild thing. So COVID happened, we got shut down. The press is just sitting there. They did come and set it up about halfway through the summer. So March, it was like June, July. So the guy, fully masked and all that shenanigans. So that got set up, and then what happened was a customer of mine had begged me to he was like, "Hey, I think if we, come together on a lot of stuff, we can be successful." So I ended up hiring him. He brought in a lot of business, and we expanded a lot overnight. So that was a really crazy time. That's actually why we ended up for the year, because he brought in a lot of new business that just, really helped things out.
Sure.
So it ended up being like a really good year for us, but I learned a lot in that as well. Like you have to be careful of how much you expand in business too. Like if you overdo it, you can overextend yourself, and that's not a good thing either. Everybody thinks that, when you grow a business, you want it to double every year, and you don't. you really don't. Those big tech companies, they're like, oh, we went from 10 million to $100 billion company. That's a different thing than a local business, expanding, doubling every year it's not sustainable, and it's too much growth. So that's probably the biggest thing that I learned is over that period of time was
Interesting. Nobody ever talks about too much growth.
exactly, and that's unfortunately what happened to us. Is we grew so fast, it was great for a while, but then stuff started to shrink down. I mean, the world kind of got back together, so we had to shrink down a little bit. So now we're at a spot where, we're very lean. At the time I had, probably 6 or 7 staff people, running different kind of departments. Now I've consolidated a lot of stuff. I have 3 really great employees that do a lot of great work, but we've had to shrink down a little bit in order to focus on, the stuff that we really needed to focus on, which was, getting back to the core, screen printing, embroidery. We do these 3 things really well. The other stuff we got to let go of.
Was that, would you say, the biggest lesson that you've learned out of
100%.
growth that was too fast?
100%. Yeah. All at the time, all I saw were dollar signs, and it's great to make $2 million, but if you spend 2.1, then that's a bad year. And even if you went from, $500,000 the year before, if you made money that year before, you actually did better than going in the hole. So
being in the green is better than being in the red.
100%. So that was probably one of the biggest lessons I learned is you have got to keep stuff at a manageable level for what you're comfortable with. Some people are comfortable with running a company with 100 employees, and we service a lot of those kind of clientele where I know those owners, and they like having a bigger business. They understand how it all works. They hired a lot of great people. But for myself, I don't want to have that kind of. I mean, there's a lot that goes with it. There's a lot of responsibility that goes with it. There's a lot of stress. And some people thrive on that, and I thrive right where I should be at. So, for a kid that sat in the back of the class and made jokes the whole time, I know where I want to be at in life. And
that's amazing. I really appreciate that outlook because it's so honest and real and raw and authentic. And we're constantly, society is like, you got to grow, right? And you got to be the biggest, you got to be the best. And no one ever talks about, you know what? Maybe I'm okay. Maybe I like where I'm at and I don't want to grow anymore because I've got a good life. Everything that I want to do is fulfilled. And that 100%. Is really cool. And that to me is like, you nailed it. If you've got everything you want to do and more, kudos to you.
100%.
That's success in my book.
No, it takes a while to get to that point where if the success people are interesting, and one of the people that I appreciate for his take on stuff is Gary Vee a little bit more, because he's a little bit more nuanced than people think. Everybody thinks he says like grind, 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 grind all the time,
Right.
and he kind of does. But if you understand his nuanced opinion on stuff, he's like, well, some people are able to do, to get to this, level that everybody else is at. But some people are happy where they're at, and you have to figure out what works, well for you. Like he's been saying that for, a long time, and people, I don't know if people, catch that, but it's definitely one of the things that I caught where it's like, look, I've got this great business, it runs at this level. Obviously, we want new customers all the time, but they have to fit into what we're doing. Like I can't stretch myself into being something that my company's not or something that I'm not just to, bring in this other customer. So really what we want to do is find great clientele that fits exactly what we want to do and is easy for us to bring in. And then, we just do the work over and over again, and it's, fantastic. And for the people that are listening to that and they think, oh, well, I just won't talk to them. It's like, no, talk to us. We'll let you know if we think it's a good fit. And most people, most companies, most individuals that want to, use our services fit. I would say probably 80 to 90% of people and businesses fit into exactly what we want to do. But there's that 10% of business, like, I'm never going to print for Target. I'm just not. And that's fine with me because I know what it's like. I've walked through those shops where there's 50 presses and it's all like manufacturing that stuff, which is fantastic for those owners. They make a lot of money. It's a big, huge operation. I just do not want that stress. I just don't want that lifestyle where,
good for you for knowing that.
You have this giant
and being honest about it.
Never, it just never ends. But on the other hand, I have my life, I got this business. It works great. We like everybody that we do business with, and those people become your friends. And then
you're absolutely right.
It's easier to do business with those people that you like, which sounds silly whenever you write it down on paper. Like do business with people you like. It's like, yes, it sounds.
It's the simplest thing, but so many people don't follow that, and that's why I think your story is so like. I love the fact that you have these boundaries and you stick to them. You say that if you talk to anybody on your staff, they're going to say, nope, this is the way it is. This is how it is. And you're the big softy. I don't even know if I believe you anymore because from what I've heard, you're pretty staunch in your boundaries. And that is what makes a great business owner.
You'd be surprised. Like, so here's what happens. And friends of mine know this. Like, if they email my admin, she'll shut it down. Like, shut it down right away. If they email me, like, hey, I'm going to get these 6 shirts, I'll print them myself on, like, a Saturday, like an idiot, like I shouldn't. So part of it is for me, because I still like to print. And part of it is, like, my friends, they still want to, they still want to come to me, and that's cool. But then another part of me is like, dude, you're at work, you're at your shop on a Saturday again. Like, you got to learn how to say no to some of this stuff too.
For sure. Okay, so Chris, we're running low on time, and I want to make sure that we get your What the Nell story in, because I kind of feel like you probably have a pretty incredible What the Nell story for us.
All right, I did 0 homework before the podcast. You're gonna have to give me a description, and I'm sure I have a story.
I have no doubts. So the What the Nell story is at the end of each episode. I ask the guest, tell us What the Nell story. Anything that leaves the audience walking away thinking, what the Nell just happened here? Anything quirky that's happened inside your business, outside of your business. It doesn't have to be about the topic at hand, but I kind of feel like you probably have a pretty crazy What the Nell story for us.
I mean, I got dozens of stories. But one of my favorite ones. So, you ever play the game 2 Truths and a Lie?
Yes.
It's one of the old youth group games. Well, one of my truths is, and this is 100% true, is in high school I was in a ska band where I fake played the trombone.
I'm sorry, what?
You heard me right.
How do you fake play a trombone?
So there were.
I mean,
Oh, this is such a stupid story. So all of my friends were in a band. We're in this band with Another Fiasco. What was the name of the band? And they were like, Chris, you know how to play the trombone, right? And I had played for one semester in second or third grade. So I was like, yep, I sure do. So they all knew how to play the instruments to some degree. And at a certain point they realized Chris has really no idea what he's doing, but he's hilarious to have around.
oh my gosh.
So we would play at local gyms, and at the time ska was huge.
Yeah.
This is Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, no doubt, height of all
I was gonna say, were you even considering a position if that were open in those bands?
I mean, obviously, yeah. I mean, I saw Real Big Fish at the Chameleon Club, which is the local spot. It was all the rage, and so I joined the band, and to this day, I still have friends of mine come up to me, and they're like, "You played in the band, and you say you faked it, but I swear you were playing." And I'm like, "I swear I was not." So the other horn players were playing their parts, and I would just fake along with it.
You just masked yourself in the background, I make a sound.
So,
oh my gosh,
not even the background. I was full on the stage, fake blowing the trombone, and then I would set it down and then go out in the audience and get the crowd hyped.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
So that lasted 2 or 3 years. We played, any kind of gigs, local, and went to Maryland a couple times. It was such a weird, crazy thing to have happen. So that's the one. Anytime I play Two Truths and a Lie, people are like, "Oh, that's definitely the lie," and it's like, right. No, it's not.
If I ever find myself in a game of that with you, I will now have an advantage because I know what the truth is.
Well, here's the thing. So what I've done in that game before, because I have so many weird off the wall stories of just weird things that have happened in my life. I'll just tell 3 truths. Yeah, and they all just sound so ridiculous that that people are like, "Oh, that one can't be true either." It's like, yeah, actually, all 3 of those things happened, not at the same time.
Oh my gosh, I love it.
Yeah,
Chris, thank you. I appreciate your time and your story and the value that you have shared with us today.
I had a great time as well.
Good. Well, tell people, how can they find you? Where can they access Big Planet Apparel? Pimp yourself out.
Yes. So bigplanetapparel.com. We just relaunched our website. It's looks cool. We had a great company do that for us. We're on Instagram a lot, Facebook. Just look up Big Planet Apparel. Apparel spelled APPAREL. And I have to often say that to myself. If you're ever in the area, stop by. We'll give you a free t-shirt. We have promotional t-shirts.
Oh, that's amazing.
I'll make sure you get one of these as well, Nell, for sure.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, I'm excited about that because Lord knows my journey on this apparel path for everything that we're doing is a long one. So I'm always happy to
make it as easy as possible because I've been on the other side of it where you're like, is this nightmare ever going to end? So we try to have decent customer service and just, be cool about a lot of stuff.
For sure. Well, Chris, thank you so much again. And I'll make sure that all of that information, the ways to connect with you, are in the show notes, of course. Awesome. And thank you to all of the listeners for listening in, the viewers on YouTube. If you are on YouTube, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. And if you're listening on your favorite audio platform, leave us a review. That's how we grow here at the What the Nell podcast. So thank you all so much. And as always, I will catch you on the next next one.
To learn more about how to tell your story, connect with Nell at enticingmedia.com. That's ENTICEING media.com. Thanks for listening to the What the Nell podcast.